Morning, Miss Scotney. In the novel The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, there are a few themes that emerge in it, some of which have to do with prejudice. Prejudice is shown a lot in this book because a young 15-year-old boy named Christopher is constantly misjudged with his lack of communication. This is because he has Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's syndrome is a disability that causes people to be socially incapable. The main themes in this speech are investigating, prejudice, and curiosity. The first theme that will be announced is investigating. Investigating is used a bit in this novel. In the novel, Chris is told by his dad to stay out of people's business, but he decides to find out who actually killed the dog Wellington. He was accused of killing the dog, so he probably wanted to prove his innocence. So he goes and knocks at every door in the neighborhood to ask questions on the whereabouts of every person was that night. There are a few examples throughout this novel that show Chris investigating, but in chapter 67, page 45 shows the best one. I decided that I would go and ask some of the other people who lived in our street if they had seen anyone killing Wellington or whether they had seen anything strange happening in the street on Thursday night, unquote. This quote shows the reader that Chris was pretty keen on finding who killed the dog. Although this was a good idea, Chris wasn't very confident socially. He asked the neighbours very bluntly whether they killed the dog or not. The type of technique that is used for the investigating theme is emotive and descriptive language to explain how Chris feels about the death of Wellington. Chris probably feels as if he has to avenge Wellington's death in order for himself to feel better. Most of the neighbours would have thought Christopher was weird except for Mrs. Alexander, who was nice to Christopher and helped him out most of the time. Christopher has shown acts of investigation in this part of the book, but is also judged unfairly on for doing so. My second point is prejudice. In the novel The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, there are a couple of themes that occur throughout this novel, which some of them, the themes have to do with prejudice. Christopher Boone is a 15-year-old teenager that is incredibly smart. He also has Asperger's syndrome, which means that he has difficulty communicating with others and has strange methods to figure out average day life and also hates to be touched. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime shows that prejudice is used against Christopher and he is mistreated. At school, Christopher would be called names just because he was different, and also at the train station because he didn't know what to do and he didn't like there being lots of people there. Christopher faced prejudice when he was hiding on the train on the shelf when he was hiding from the police officer because he didn't want to go back to his father's house because he was scared, and a few people saw him when they went to grab their belongings and said hurtful things to him because he was going something that is considered weird but they should not neglect him or call him names. And then, quote, and then there were another 4 stops and 4 people came and one moved the big suitcase that was in front of me and only one person saw me and said, "You are weird, mate," and that was a man in a suit. For this passage of the book, Christopher uses repetition for an example. He gets picked on at school when all the other children know that he has autism and they shouldn't be teasing him. It shows that people treat Christopher as if he is not as important. They treat him as if he is not even human and just calling him names and not making Christopher feel welcome and makes him feel unwanted. Prejudice is extremely bad and no one should get bullied because will make you feel unwanted. Imagine how you would feel if this would happen to you. My third point is curiosity. My final theme is curiosity. In this theme, Christopher is often wondering who killed Mrs. Shear's dog, Wellington. Christopher usually wonders about how strange everyone's emotions are. Then he realizes that his mum is still alive, but his father told him she died. This theme is very relevant to the book because Christopher's head is always being played with. Another reason Chris is curious is because he has a slight suspicion that his dad killed the dog. So he snoops around in his room. Quote, "So I told myself I would not mess with things in his room. I would move them and then move them back, and he would never know that I had done it, so he wouldn't get angry." Unquote. This quote shows the curiosity that Chris shows. Mark Haddon, the writer of this book, has done this bit in the book well, because he doesn't give away too much of the plot, but still gives you a slight suspicion that his dad had killed a dog. Thank you for listening.